Good evening, this is Gabriel Jackson, and welcome to BJC Mitzvah Day number 73, Part 7. It's a long one. Mitzvah Day keeps us on its way. The prohibition to eat Tereifah. Having informed us that there are 72 different types of Tereifah defects, the Chinuch discusses how they're dealt with on a practical level. Concerning all these different types of possible Tereifah defects that the sages listed for animals and birds, a person is not obligated to seek after them and inspect the slaughtered animal or bird for them before he eats the meat of an animal or bird. This is because their chazaka is that they're kosher, meaning we assume that they're kosher. He says in the footnote, chazaka in this context refers to a presumed status. The principle of chazaka states that bearing evidence to the contrary, a given legal state, being free of a defect, being permitted for consumption, is presumed to continue unchanged. The presumed state of an animal is that it is healthy, for the majority of animals are not born Tereifah. Okay? This is because their chazaka is that they are kosher, for the majority of living creatures are presumed by us to be in an unchanged state of good health from the moment of their birth. Thus, unless there is reason to suspect otherwise, we assume that a slaughtered animal is healthy and does not have any of the defects listed. This applies to all the possible Tereifah defects except one of them, for which the sages required us to check before we may eat the meat. Because this type of Tereifah defect is very common. This is the unique Tereifah defect found in the lung. The Chinuch provides a general description of this defect. It is common for fibrous adhesions called circhos to be found on the lung, and these circhos also adhere to other surfaces within the chest cavity, i.e. other lobes of the lung, the ribs, the flesh of the chest walls, attaching the lung to them. And there is thus a concern that when the animal moves about while it is alive, they might tug at the membrane of the lung to which they are adhered and perforate it, thus rendering the animal Tereifah on account of a puncture of the lung. Therefore, after slaughtering an animal, a person must always examine its lungs to determine whether and in what circumstances these fibrous adhesions are present on the lung before he eats of the animal. If he finds such adhesions situated in a manner by which it is possible that through their movement they could theoretically have punctured the lung while the animal was alive, it is deemed Tereifah. This law applies even if the lung is not actually punctured, for we say whatever was eventually bound to be punctured is considered as if it is already punctured, and conceptually it is as if the animal was already dead, i.e. mortally wounded during its lifetime on account of that adhesion, since it cannot escape death. That is, since the animal during its lifetime had a condition that was bound to result in its death, it is considered Tereifah, even though the existing condition had not yet created an actual wound that would precipitate its death. Moreover, it is known that the illness that produces those fibrous adhesions in spots on the lung that are destined to become punctured through them is itself the beginning of a fatal disease. Thus, the animal is automatically considered Tereifah once the fibrous adhesions have formed in those spots, even before they actually create a perforation in the lung. The lobes of the lung are divided by halacha into three types called una, and unita devarda, known in modern terms as the caudal lobe, cranial lobes, and intermediate lobe. Okay. I think we'll talk a little more about that tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Hope I pronounced those words right. If not, I'll correct myself tomorrow. Thanks for listening to Sponsor Future Mitzvah 36-100 for the gold, and we'll see you tomorrow.